Single dad janitor kissed a billionaire to save her life, and then everything changed. The night everything changed smelled like bleach, rain, and quiet desperation. The kind of night where the world feels indifferent to human suffering. The kind of night where one small decision can either pass unnoticed, or rewrite lives forever. When the janitor pressed his trembling lips to the billionaire's cold mouth, he did not know he was crossing an invisible line between poverty and power, loneliness and love, survival and destiny. He only knew one thing with terrifying clarity: if he didn't act in that exact moment, she would die. Before the story pulls you deeper, pause for just a second. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one brave moment to change everything, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. His name was Aaron Cole, and he was invisible to the world. A single father in his late 30s, he wore the same gray janitor uniform every night, its seams frayed, its fabric permanently stained by years of cleaning other people's messes. He worked the night shift at one of the tallest corporate towers in the city, a place of glass walls and silent elevators, where executives left behind half-drunk coffees and discarded ambition. Aaron cleaned without complaint, because complaining did not feed his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, who waited every morning for him to come home smelling of disinfectant and exhaustion. Aaron's life had not always been this narrow. Once, he had dreams of becoming a paramedic, inspired by the day he had saved a stranger after a car accident as a teenager. But life did not care about dreams. Lily's mother had died suddenly from an undiagnosed heart condition, leaving Aaron shattered and alone with a newborn. Medical bills piled up, tuition became impossible, and survival replaced aspiration. The janitor job was supposed to be temporary. Years later, it was all he had. That night, the building was quieter than usual. A storm raged outside, rain slamming against the windows like fists. Aaron pushed his cart down the executive floor, humming softly, thinking about how Lily had asked him earlier why he always looked tired. He had smiled and said it was because superheroes worked at night. He did not tell her about the fear that followed him everywhere, the fear of one missed paycheck, one illness, one bad day. He noticed the lights on in the corner office belonging to Evelyn Hartwell, the billionaire CEO whose name was spoken with awe and resentment across the city. She was a woman who owned half the skyline and was rumored to sleep less than anyone alive. Aaron had seen her only a handful of times, always moving fast, always surrounded by power. Tonight, something felt wrong. The office door was half open. Papers were scattered. A glass lay shattered on the floor. He found her collapsed beside her desk. At first, his mind refused to process what he was seeing. Evelyn Hartwell, one of the richest women in the country, lay motionless, her skin pale, her lips tinged with blue. Panic surged through him like electricity. He dropped his mop and rushed to her side, calling for help into the empty corridor, his voice swallowed by the storm and the sleeping city. Aaron checked her pulse with shaking fingers. It was weak, erratic. He remembered his unfinished training, the emergency videos he had watched long ago, the instinct that had never left him. She wasn't breathing properly. Something was obstructing her airway, or her body was simply shutting down. His hands trembled as he fumbled for his phone, but there was no signal in the executive wing during storms. The landline on the desk was smashed, the receiver dangling uselessly. Time stretched into a cruel, suffocating silence. He knew what he had to do. He also knew how it would look. A poor janitor, alone with an unconscious billionaire, performing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. The thought of being misunderstood, accused, destroyed, flashed through his mind. But then he saw Lily's face in his imagination, the way she trusted him to do the right thing, always. Aaron did not hesitate again. He tilted Evelyn's head back, cleared her airway as best he could, and breathed life into her lungs. Once. Twice. 3 times. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. On the 4th breath, she coughed violently, her body jerking back to life, air rushing into her chest. Color slowly returned to her face as she gasped, eyes fluttering open in confusion and fear. Relief crashed over Aaron so powerfully that he nearly collapsed. He stayed with her until her breathing stabilized, until the building's emergency line finally connected and help was on the way. When security arrived, he stepped back, soaked in sweat, his uniform stained, his hands still shaking. The aftermath was brutal. Aaron was escorted to a small room by security, questioned for hours, his words dissected, his motives scrutinized. He expected gratitude. Instead, he faced suspicion. The power imbalance was clear and cruel. He was a janitor. She was a billionaire. His truth felt fragile against her status, even though she was unconscious for most of the ordeal. He was sent home without answers. Days passed with no word. Aaron returned to work, carrying the weight of uncertainty like a stone in his chest. He replayed the moment again and again, wondering if he had done something wrong, if saving a life could somehow ruin his own. Lily sensed his worry and hugged him tighter every morning before school. Then everything changed. A company-wide email announced an internal investigation had concluded. Aaron was asked to report to the executive floor. His legs felt like lead as he rode the elevator up, convinced this was the moment his fragile world would collapse. Instead, he walked into a room filled with light. Evelyn Hartwell stood waiting. She looked different than the image plastered across magazines. Smaller. Human. Her eyes held something raw and unguarded. She had learned everything about Aaron in those days of recovery. His job. His daughter. His unfinished dreams. She had watched the security footage herself, seen his hesitation, his fear, and his courage. What followed was not a public spectacle, not a dramatic announcement, but something far more powerful. Evelyn ordered that Aaron's employment record be cleared and honored. She established a fund in his late wife's name to cover Lily's education. She quietly paid off his debts. She insisted he finish his paramedic training, covering every expense. Not as charity, but as recognition. Aaron struggled to accept it. Pride and humility warred inside him. But Evelyn made it clear that this was not repayment for a kiss that saved her life. It was gratitude for a man who chose humanity over fear. Their lives continued to intersect in unexpected ways. Evelyn invited Aaron to speak at a company wellness initiative, not as an employee, but as a reminder that heroism does not wear expensive suits. Aaron found his voice shaking at first, then growing steady as he spoke about responsibility, love, and the quiet courage of ordinary people. He became a paramedic within a year. The first time Lily saw him in uniform, her eyes shone with pride so bright it nearly broke him. He was no longer invisible. Not because of wealth or connections, but because someone powerful had finally looked at him and truly seen him. Evelyn, too, had changed. Her near-death experience stripped away layers of control and isolation. She began mentoring employees personally, funding community health programs, and showing up in places her status once kept her from. She and Aaron spoke occasionally, not as savior and saved, but as two people bound by one impossible moment. The city never knew the full story. Headlines focused on corporate philanthropy and leadership transformation. They never mentioned the janitor who chose compassion over self-preservation. But in a small apartment filled with laughter and second-hand furniture, a father tucked his daughter into bed each night knowing he had done the right thing. Years later, Aaron would still remember the cold feel of the office floor, the fear in his chest, the warmth of a breath given freely. He understood now that life did not change in grand gestures alone, but in quiet decisions made when no one was watching. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness still matters in a world that often forgets it, please take a moment to like, share, and comment on this video. Your engagement tells us these stories deserve to be heard. And before this story ends, we have a special request for you. Please comment the words, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe one selfless act can rewrite a destiny. Because somewhere tonight, an invisible person is standing at a crossroads, afraid and unsure. And maybe, just maybe, this story will give them the courage to choose compassion and change everything.